Mel, welcome to the Profit Podcast. It's an absolute pleasure
Hello,
to have you with us. How are you doing?
I'm really good. And how are you? It's lovely to see you again after all this time.
I
I'm
know
sure we'll get on to how I know
we
you
go
anyway.
we go a long way back, don't we? It's sort of
We do.
strange how these things work themselves out. When we first met all them years ago, I never thought that we'd be one day sat on a podcast talking about menopause.
I know. And you know what? Before we even get into the meat of this, I'll just tell you a bit of a story because recently I've been working with an app called Fitain, and the guys who run that app is four guys that were in the office. And I went and talked to them about it, and they had so many, like, because obviously blokes, it's not your topic of conversation in the pub, is it? Let's be honest. They had so many like what and like aha moments in the whole thing. So I'm pretty convinced you're going to have a few of them today.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I am genuinely really looking forward to today because this is one of the topics that I feel like we should all spend a bit more time learning about.
Yeah.
I am a self-confessed absolute novice in this area, so I'm going to learn a hell of a lot today, and I know that the audience will as well. So,
Yeah.
as we've sort of already alluded to, we are going to talk about menopause today. Mel
Yeah.
is a certified menopause support coach, so we're going to
Yes.
talk about all of those things. But before we dive into that, Mel, just give us that little brief
History.
2 minute background
Oh,
story of
2 minute. Oh, crikey. Now the elevator pitch. I don't know if I can do that. We'll have a good go. So I was actually late starting, but compared to most of your guys in terms of my fitness career, as it were, I was always into fitness. Everybody used to say, you should do this as a job. And you always think, well, no, because I enjoy it. So why would I do it as a job? That's going to ruin everything. But anyway, go on quite a few years. I decided to take it on. That was back in 2013. So I've been in the industry 10 years next year, which, gosh, I can't believe how much that's flown. But yeah, I started, did obviously my PT level 3, started with Profit when I met guys from Profit, and obviously was very impressed because I came to work with you guys. And literally, I guess I was with Profit about 2 years maybe, and then I moved on. Can I say out loud? Got poached by another gym. I might as well drop that in. Got taken away, but you know what? The years with Profit were I can't even quantify how valuable they were. We may have moaned a lot at the time, but it was great learning. And obviously from there, I guess, as everybody knows, 2020 March, we went into lockdown. There was all this uncertainty. We're in the gym, we're out of the gym, we're in the gym, we're trying to do a bit online and we're in the gym. And it was just for me, by the end of 2020, I just thought, I'm either going to have to decide here. And most people don't decide, they can do both. For me, I decided I either want to go down the online route or I want to stick with the gym thing rather than just do both in a sort of dilute way. That was just my personal choice. I know many people do both. So I decided to go down the online route, and January 2021 it will be, I went fully online, which is it's quite a big thing because you think you've been a PT all these years, that'll be easy, just do it online, but it's a different world altogether. I took on a business mentor for a year, and then of January this year, 2022, I decided to do my menopause support coaching certification. At the time, I remember thinking, you know what? It's another string to my bow. It's something else I can learn about. I did obviously my degree in physiology, so I know all about hormones, endocrinology. I thought I knew it all. So when I did this course, it was literally just another thing to write on the CV. But my goodness me, my eyes, I can say, were opened massively as to what I've been missing over the years as a coach, and I'm hopefully going to relate to your guys. So much stuff that you feel almost guilty now that because I know from you and the guys you work with, a big part of our demographic is ladies in their late 30s, 40s, 50s, and we'll get into the age grouping a bit later. But I know I missed so much across those years of what people were going through because I just didn't get it. What you don't know, you don't know. So I qualified in April. I've got to bring it in. My certificate, very
there's
proud,
a
got
certificate.
distinction, as you would expect, Matt, obviously. So yeah, I qualified in April this year, and obviously I've literally grabbed it and run with it. At first, I was a little bit wary because I think you'll know, and your guys out there will know, when you're a coach, you don't want to turn anyone away. So you want to be all things to all people. You want to coach anybody. And in a gym, usually that's what we're doing. But for me, I had to just decide, right, I'm going to really niche down into this. It's a specialism for me. I'm passionate. I'm also, can't not admit, I'm at that age where I am empathetic as well. I understand it all from a personal point of view. So that's the road I went down, and that's where I'm coming from today, really, just to help your guys understand this whole area of a woman's life, and it's not just a few years. It's it's like a third of the life. You've got to remember that. So yeah, it's an interesting topic, and there'll be a lot to talk about, I'm sure.
Yes, there will. It's almost a tricky one to know where to start with this. I mean, you alluded to the fact there that, you know, you made mistakes yourself. We'll have all made mistakes in this area. We don't know what we don't know.
Yeah.
So specifically to PTs, Mel,
Yeah.
what do you think like the most glaringly obvious things are initially? I mean, I don't know whether you'll need to explain to us a little bit of background about the menopause first to this to make for this to make sense, but take that however you want, and knowing this audience as well as you do, give us your little 101 in terms of where we're really missing the boat on some of this stuff.
Yeah, and I think that's great. The fact that I can see it from that angle, is invaluable, really. So one big aha moment I'm going to just give you now is the whole idea of what is the menopause. So, got to remember that menopause, would you believe, is actually one day of a woman's life. Now that's going to be, you're going to be like, sorry, but yeah, it is. So what happens is, obviously, this can happen to women from the day they start their periods, they start menstruating. It can happen then. It happens to some girls in their teens, would you believe? All it really means is, and it's the perimenopause, so you'll understand the word peri, scientific background, we know what that means. That's a sort of lead up in between phase. So the perimenopause starts when your hormones, your sex hormones, so obviously women have estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. That's something I need to emphasize here, because testosterone has always been seen as the male hormone. Would you believe women have 3 times more testosterone before the menopause than they do estrogen? Now that's another big aha moment, isn't it? It's like, right, so they've got more testosterone and estrogen, yet it's never seen as a female hormone, but it is key. So yes, just going back a bit. So obviously when your hormone starts to decrease, and as I say, that can happen at any time after your period start, that's classed as the perimenopause, the lead up to this day, this one day menopause. The one day menopause, if I can just explain what I mean by that, is the day when a woman hasn't had a period for a solid year, 12 months. So it's actually a retrospective look back in time.
Yep.
So you haven't had a period for 12 months, and sometimes you might not have one for 11 months and then you have another one. And it's like, right, well, no, you're not then. So it's this one day. Once you can say, and often that's confused sometimes with the contraception women are on, remember, because often contraception stops periods. And I'm going off on a few tangents here, but that one day is the 12 months, solid period of time when there's no periods. And then after that is classed as postmenopausal. So we've got perimenopausal, one day menopause, postmenopausal. So wow, eh? As if we didn't, none of us knew that. So anyway, so the perimenopause is the real bit most of us guys will be dealing with, because this can often happen. And I think, is it I get my figures right, 1 in 100 women, it's under 40. So late 30s, they'll be starting the perimenopause. And all that means is the hormones are starting to decrease. And as you know, with a lot of things with hormones, it's not a nice linear decrease.
No.
Never is. It's always just like a drop, and then stabilizes, might go up a bit, down a bit, and it's like a stuttering decrease. So sometimes women won't know themselves, because they might get this effect of the lowering hormones, and I'm sure we'll go into the symptoms at some point, of which there are a lot. They might get this sort of effect of those lowering hormones, but that might tie in at maybe age 39, maybe age 42, with when they've just got a kid, a family, young family, or growing up family. They might have a really high pressure career that's really taking a lot of their energy. They might have become a carer for parents or relations. So there's a lot of things going on in a 40-year-old woman's life that's taking a lot of her energy. So she's not going to think straight away, oh, that's my hormones, I must be perimenopausal. Of course she's not. She's just going to think, oh, I'm tired, I'm just not sleeping well, oh God, I'm sweating all right, and whatever it might be that the symptom is. So it might be that these ladies in the gym that we are dealing with, and remember, they could be late 30s, they could be 20s. I think 1 in 1,000 women are under 30. I will check the stats and let you know the exact stats. But remember, it could be anybody. And it's just noticing the symptoms as a coach, I think. What I've got is a list of symptoms here. Would you believe I printed it off? And there's 21 of the general symptoms that people struggle with, and they are full body encompassing. So it's really difficult to pin this down and say, yeah, she's definitely perimenopausal. I can see because she's got this. It could be one of many things. if you know a bit about sort of science, you'll know that the body has estrogen receptors everywhere.
Yeah.
Eyes, ears, everywhere. They're not just in your uterus, they're not just in your ovaries, they're everywhere. So these symptoms are affecting brain, they're affecting joints, they're affecting obviously your vasomotor symptoms like the sweats. That you'll have heard, they're the common symptoms people have heard of, the hot flashes and the sweats. But actually, for most women, it's not that. It's the mood symptoms. It's well, you might recognize it if anybody out there has got a female partner, that sort of lack of tolerance, the angriness, like getting really mad with you, and you just think, oh, they say she's hormonal again. Well, actually, probably are. But yeah, not to do with their own fault, just because their hormones are decreasing. And that will happen in a very stuttered fashion. And the average age for that starting is 41. So probably a
Right.
lot younger than you'd have thought.
Yeah.
Most people, let's be honest, you Google menopause, you will see the grey-haired lady, running down the street with a fan in the hand. You won't see like someone in their early 40s or late 30s and connect it with perimenopause, would you? You just wouldn't.
No.
So for
No.
me, this is now the education saying, no, this could be any of those ladies. And if you're struggling with a lady in the gym who's just, hot flashes are the obvious one. But, if she's just struggling with mood, anxiety, sometimes a little bit of depression, or just lack of confidence. Now, that's a big one for ladies in the gym, especially of that age. It comes across as a real lack of confidence. It could well be just that the hormones are going, and they don't even realise.
Yeah.
So I know I've spoken for a long time now. I don't know if you've got any questions on everything I've said there before I carry on, because I do get on my soapbox.
I think the main one is, because I'm guessing that this will depend individually, but in general, then, because I've had women that came to me in the gym and sort of one of their opening bits of conversation was, I'm going through the menopause. So I suppose making sure we get that interpretation right is really important. So when a woman approaches you as a trainer potentially and says, I'm going through the menopause, is it more likely that at that point they're actually post-menopausal, or will they be perimenopausal? Like where do people tend to find out in terms of, I suppose it will depend, but
it really is a good question, because again, it comes back to what they believe the symptoms are being caused by. See, that, as I said before, they could have been experiencing all of these symptoms. The joint pain is a big one for the gym, isn't it? The lack of confidence. They could have been experiencing all that, and as I say, blaming it on the career, the kids, the caring. But they don't realize at that point. So if they are saying to you they're menopausal, it's probably more likely they've maybe had it diagnosed by a doctor somehow, or they've spoken to a friend, or they've connected the dots. I think that's all it is. They've connected the dots of the symptoms together and realized, but mostly it's through someone else intervening, because I think most women are so busy with life that they don't ever think, I haven't got time to stop for this. I've got kids to deal with, I've got this to deal with. So, if someone does come to the gym and say that, then yes, I would imagine it has been potentially diagnosed, or they haven't had a period for 12 months and they just thought, well, I am. Some women don't struggle as much as others, but there's some that really struggle and just don't know why, and that's such a shame. And we're also struggling getting the right treatment, because a lot of GPs are just not educated. Like we've said, what you don't know, you don't know. And from obviously talking and listening to many GPs talk, they will all admit that on their training, they don't get trained in this, which is crazy, isn't it? If you think that women now might go into this period of their life in the late 30s, and potentially could die 90s, 80s, 90s. That's a lot of their life that's not getting dealt with, isn't it?
Yeah, huge.
And not getting the right treatment, whatever that chooses to be. So, yeah. It's a tricky one. It's a tricky one to answer yes or no on that question, but yeah.
Yeah. I suppose, like you say, it just depends on, because even if they've had a diagnosis from a doctor, I suppose we need to be careful, because obviously doctors do what they can, but even then, if they've had that sort of diagnosis, it doesn't necessarily mean that they've encountered that singular day yet. They could still be leading up to that potentially, and then it's after that that they'd be postmenopausal. And you mentioned symptoms and things a minute ago, Mel, and I know there's obviously countless ones of those, but I think something that might be worth asking you about specifically to PTs is, what impact is this potentially going to have on body composition, ability to lose weight, weight gain? Because those are the types of things that I've heard other PTs will hear. And again, as a male that doesn't go through this or hasn't really encountered many women that have gone through it, you sort of think, well, how much of that is actually down to the menopause? How much of it is other things? How much of it is maybe not directly the menopause, but maybe indirectly because it's increased appetite or something like that? You know, where do we sit with those types of things? What do we need to know about that area?
Yeah, there is quite a lot on that area. And obviously, I think even from our conversation today, Matt, I think even you are going to probably see things differently when you talk to clients about this, which is brilliant. That's what it's all about. So let's start with the classic one, which is the mid-range, that middle bit weight gain that all women say, well, you know, I'm at that age now. This is what happens now. Yes, okay, there's some truth in that, but we know about sort of basal metabolic rate. Now, we know that as you get older, your metabolism, it does drop. There's a reason for that, isn't there? Would you believe, as we hit sort of, again, late 30s or mid 30s sometimes, our muscle mass is dropping, isn't it? It's sarcopenia, it's dropping, and that's just an age-related and hormone-related thing. Now, you know as well as I do, we can do something to combat that, and that is a weight training. And that is why you and me and all those trainers, we're all trying our best to advocate you must be lifting and doing resistance training, especially as you hit this age. This isn't a thing for the young ones, the 20-year-olds. Oh, Jim, you know, it's not for me. I'm getting that a bit older now. No, this is when it is for you. This is when you should be doing it. Because if you can stave off that sarcopenia or slow it, and we're not going to reverse it, we're going to slow it, that's for sure. Do our best to reverse it. You can then keep that metabolism as high as possible. But while your muscle mass is just sort of, I hate to say it, wasting away, so is your metabolic rate, because as you know, muscle is metabolically active, and we want to hold on to that. We
Yep.
really do want to hold on to that. And I think we've got to get past these ladies who come in the gym and say to you, well, I weight trained in the past and made me get bulky and I grew these big. No, you didn't. So I think it's just an education, isn't it? This is the age when your muscle mass is going down. But for women in the gym, it's just making sure they understand that's why your metabolism's dropping. If suddenly they don't want to think about getting muscly, but they don't want to think about losing metabolism. That's far more important. So it's like sell them what they want, give them what they need in this situation, I think.
Yeah.
And I think really important, yes, we all want to look great, but the osteoporosis risk is huge. So again, unfortunately, this 30s age is awful, isn't it? Because 30s, we have this peak density in our bones. And from that point, that bone density starts to decrease. And as you know, we end up with sort of our bones more like an arrow than a whisper, as it were, and the holes get a bit bigger, more fragile. And that's happening, that's happening as you hit your late 30s, 40s. And again, what's the answer? Resistance training, getting in the gym, lifting weights, putting some pressure on those joints and really trying to stave that off, because I hate to say it, the problem is once you start getting fragile bones and you sort of get into your 50s, a simple slip in winter, and we're getting there now, could be a hip fracture. And you know what? It's not the osteoporosis that kills someone. It's the hip fracture in the 50s or 60s when they're in hospital. That's usually the mortality risk, unfortunately, and that's a horrible thing to talk about. But for a lot of ladies who your guys are seeing in the gym, that should be another real pushing point for us. Staving off osteoporosis, get your bones and keep them strong, and avoid those bloody, excuse my French, fragility fractures, easy for me to say, in later life, because that's key. So obviously you've got the weight gain, you've got the, and I think that also plays into the muscle soreness and the joint. We all know about keeping our muscles flexible and the range of motion and stretching. So they're the two big ones in terms of, and I think in terms of mindset. Do you know what? Coming to the gym, getting your workout done, we all know we feel better. We all know we get the endorphins going. And at this time of life when hormones are depleting, it has a huge effect on this, your brain and your mindset and feeling good and that anxiety and confidence. So if we can put a bit of that back in by getting people feeling good in the gym, it's just winner, isn't it? So in terms of all those sort of holistic things of eating well and protein, obviously, have to touch on that, don't we? Same deal as for a bodybuilder, as for a woman going through this period of life. Protein is key. We've got to protect that muscle. Vitamins and minerals, obviously fiber, all the usual healthy stuff, but protein is still so important. I think women think as they get older, that's not as important, because well, I'm not a weight trainer. I'm not trained to be an athlete. It's more important. We're trying to protect something here. So
Yep,
that's
yep,
key as well. I think that'll be part of what your trainers will have to really hit home with people is that protein.
yeah,
The usual, I just stick with the usual rules, like a gram per pound, or people have different ratios they use, but that for me is quite an easy one to stick to. But for most women, as you know, just getting them over 100 gram of protein a day, that'd be a great start, because you often look at women's protein, it's not even close. It's frightening, actually.
yeah, yeah. And I suppose that leads us quite nicely into this next bit,
Yeah,
because again, you've almost got this sort of pre-menopause training, post-menopause training
yeah.
ability to look back on things. What are some of the things that you did or didn't do that you think other trainers will still be doing now that maybe we need to address, whether that be in terms of what we're prescribing exercise-wise or what we're prescribing or not prescribing nutritionally?
Yeah.
What are things that we're maybe doing we shouldn't be doing or not doing that we should be doing?
Yeah.
Where do you think the gaps are in that might help a few people today?
Yeah, I think for me, looking at it now, I think you'll have a lot of ladies who are desperate to lose this bit of weight around the middle that starts to hit. And they will think, as we know, that throwing themselves into hit classes and all that stuff is really the thing to do it. Well, I've read online you can burn this amount of calories in these, but they're not thinking about the potential, also at this age, the potential injury risk, obviously, especially if you've not done any weight training. Obviously, I've just talked about the bone density thing. Throwing yourself into a hit class after, you can just imagine what the fallout from that could be. So I think for me now, knowing what I know compared to before, I'd be more encouraging of getting out for long walks for your cardio rather than going up to a hit class for cardio. And I think, a lot of people are talking about that. It's probably common knowledge. Getting out in the sunshine, getting out in the daylight, that's going to also affect your sleep, which we haven't touched on yet. Um, so walking for your cardio or just getting outside if possible. When you're in the gym, for me, it will be either, if you're not doing some sort of mobility and stretching, keeping yourself flexible, it's got to be lifting. And I
Yep.
think I'd probably be a lot more strict about that now with people. If people were saying to me, oh, I'm doing gym 3 times a week, I go to a hit class. No, that's great. If you enjoy it, fabulous. And as long as you're not doing any damage to yourself. But I think on top of that, we must get in a balance. Now I try to prescribe like a balance with the hit. If they want to do the hit training or they want to do the aerobics classes, make sure there's a balance between the amount of aerobics and the amount of lifting you're doing, just so we're getting some sort of even between muscle build and wearing our poor joints away, jumping around to Joe Wicks or something. But yeah, so that would be what I'd change now. I'd be suggesting getting cardio in outside of the gym if you can. I know the British weather and all that. I'd be suggesting maybe taking on some stretching classes regularly, because you only have to look around you at some of the older generations, some of the postural issues people are dealing with. And I know we can't correct it all. We're sitting in a chair all day. We can't correct it all in half an hour stretching. I realise that, but we can do our best to keep things moving. And since I've been doing a lot more stretching since lockdown, really, I just feel so much better for it. You feel so much in control of your own body and your own joints.
Yep.
So for me, that would be the difference. And not really relating to exercise as such, but I would definitely, if you've got a lady, and as I say, for your show notes, I can always send you the list of the common 21 symptoms that we look at. It's classed as the Green's Climatic Scale. That's what we use. And that shows all the sort of basic symptoms. If you've got a lady who you think, I think this maybe that she's starting going through perimenopause or postmenopause, doesn't matter, the symptoms probably all tie up. I would suggest to her, now, there's one thing here that people get wrong. They think that they can just go to the doctor and get a blood test. Blood tests don't really tell a tale, because you know as well I do, Matt, with hormones, it's not just a straight line. They're all like a symphony. They're all interacting. They're all affecting each other. And for a woman who's struggling with this, the time when her hormones are low are probably 2 a.m. in the morning. And that isn't the time you've had blood taken out your arm, is it? The time you go and have your blood test is a convenient time to you, and sometimes when you're feeling a bit better. So it's not going to give the answer. If you're going to see the doctor and want a diagnosis, as it were, I hate to call it that because it's not an illness, this is just life.
Yep.
But if you want to be told that you are going through it, if you need that confirmation, or you should be able to confirm it yourself looking at the symptoms, but if you need that confirmation, go to the doctor with your list of symptoms. And I would say to your trainers, encourage that. Encourage your client to start tracking symptoms in a diary, they might only see them once every 2 or 3 months. It might just go off. I told you about the sort of stuttering hormone. There might be times when everything just, oh, I'm fine again. Oh, what was I worried about? And then it hits again. And then it hits again. And each time it's a little bit worse because that's just the way hormones work. I would encourage your clients to take a diary of symptoms. That is key. Once
Yep.
they've built up a picture of what's going on, take that diary to the doctor rather than just go, oh, take a blood test. Yes, they might do that because they might want to prove it's not B12, hyperthyroidism, all the other classic hormonal things that we might be dealing with. So they might want to check that. But if they tell you that, and you're over the age of 40, especially over the age of 45, they tell you they're going to test your blood to tell you if you're perimenopausal, then you might have to correct them. And we hate to do that because obviously the doctors know everything. But I think you do it on symptoms alone. So I would encourage your clients to keep that diary, get the doctor with the symptoms. And then, as you might know from watching my content, I'm a huge, huge advocate of considering the possibility of HRT because, and I don't know if you want to get onto the topic of that, because that is quite a huge one for most ladies and life-changing, to be honest.
Yeah, go for some. I suppose where it might be useful for our audience is knowing what that potentially changes if a client goes and starts that journey.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's very individual, up to them whether or not they want to take that. And I know that some women aren't able to take it because of underlying issues with other things. I know there's members of my family that can't take it because of genetic problems and stuff like that. But if someone was to go down that route, what does that, like you say, it's like life-changing. What does that potentially change, and how does that impact what we do?
Yeah, totally get what you're saying. I think we could go on a massive rabbit hole with this because even from what you just said there about your own family, there is so much misunderstanding. So much. We are still looking when it comes to obviously the big one for women is, oh, I've got breast cancer in the family, I've got the BRCA gene, I've got all this stuff. It's old research. I can tell you now, if you actually go and do your research, what they're pulling from is stuff that was done years ago and has been completely, I would say, disproved from my own research. So there are so many methods now of getting those hormones into your system transdermally through a patch or a gel or a spray. Whereas in the olden days, if you might not know, but they used to use pregnant horses' urine. This is way back in the day. And it was in a tablet form, so it was a bit more aggressive on the liver. It has to go through systemic. So it's different now. It's through the skin. It's totally safe. And they have actually proved for a lot of women, it decreases the breast cancer risk. So I would encourage women who have got this preconception about, I'm not taking HRT, it's dangerous, I've got this, that, and the other. Look into it because you could find out that the new research has changed everything. There was one study that came out years ago that really knocked everybody's confidence, and people who were on HRT came off it because it scared them. And it's taking years now for us to sort of prove that that research was actually twisted and was wrong, and the media got hold of it and it got totally misconstrued. So now we are looking at new research, like new methods, or easier things to take, patches, gels. It doesn't have to go in a tablet into your mouth. It's just so much safer. So I would invite, everybody to look into it. Because we're not just talking about staving off symptoms here. We're not just talking about stopping the flushes, giving you your confidence back. Obviously, it's like a circle, isn't it? If you get your confidence back through taking HRT, then you're more likely to go into the gym. If you start feeling better about yourself, you're more likely to eat properly. You're more likely to start exercising again. It's like an ever increasing circle then that starts at this one point of just starting to feel a little bit more human again by getting back your estrogen, progesterone, and potentially testosterone that you're now missing. I think it scares people because they think, oh, I don't think I'd want to go on that medication. Well, it's not though, is it? Because all you're doing is now topping up something you had through your whole healthy life to this point. We're just topping it up again. We're not medicating ourselves effectively, are we? We're just topping up. So, and the far-reaching effects of doing that are literally staving off in later life, heart disease, a lot of cancers, osteoporosis. Dementia is a big one. Dementia is a big one for ladies, and you will see this a lot if you look at the old research. Dementia is really common in older ladies. And just by doing HRT, we can like I don't know what the actual stats are, but we can reduce the risk massively of that. So for me, it's a no-brainer. I know for a lot of people, it's personal choice. We live in a world where we can make choices, and that's great. But you must do your research on that. And I think for ladies who are worried about it and are worried about the things like you talked about, like the health conditions, just have a little bit of a look into that. And if they want any resources, I can supply that to you. If you want anything to read, podcasts and stuff, I've done loads of this, so I do know. But yeah, I know it is sometimes a scary subject for people because they're still left with this fear from things they've read. So that is
Yeah.
frightening, but things have changed. That's the bottom line on that one.
Suppose we're very aware of how these things get taken out of context. Even just like as a PT, if you're listening to this, we know this from like one study done on fat intake years ago, and then everyone goes on a low fat diet,
Oh,
and we
yeah,
know
we've had the
we know
same.
the long lasting effects of these one moments, like these singular moments in time that then get, like you say, the media get hold of them and stuff like that. This sounds like a very, very similar type of thing has gone on
It's
here.
Yeah, it's really, really, it's quite depressing because we know people who are in this sort of menopause space now and know it all. Well, that sounds terrible, know it all, but know all about this are frustrated because they want to get the word to more people. This is a safe and effective treatment of what you are going through, not just what you're going through now. If you could tick a box and say, I don't want to get osteoporosis, I want to reduce my chance of this osteoporosis, heart disease, dementia, all these things. Who wouldn't tick those boxes? And I just think that's the thing. But we're so caught up in this one, like you said, it's a bit like the low carb thing. Somebody said that, or somebody said keto, everybody loses weight. Oh, well, let's all do it, because it's great. We do. We have this in the fitness industry, don't we? But definitely, if you've got ladies who are going through it, invite them to do the research about it, and invite them to even the great thing, and I'll just press this one point home. The great thing about HRT, especially transdermally in a patch or a gel, is that if you apply those patches, it goes into your bloodstream. The half-life is only 18 hours. If you change your mind the next day, take it off, it's forgotten about. So we're not talking about, like, we have these awful stories about people getting stuck on antidepressants, and that's another thing that's happening with perimenopausal women
Yep.
because it's the obvious get out when they're going through this. Antidepressants, you can't just stop. You've got to do the weaning off. Often people, it's horrible. With the hormones, you can test it out. You could test it out for a month, see how you feel. And I can pretty much say after a month or so, you will normally feel better. But remember, it's a bit like contraception for ladies in the younger years. You don't go on your first contraception and just go, yeah, that's for me, carry on. It doesn't work like that. There are so many different ways. Obviously with your contraception, you've got tablets, you've got implants, you've got coils. Same with HRT. Test all of them. It's only got a half-life of 18 hours. It'll be out of the system. Try another one until you find something that fits your life. And these are all things I would say if your coaches are talking to the ladies. I know they're not coming from a place where they're fully educated, but a few of these pertinent points, it could really change someone's life.
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know if you'll know, I don't, there might not be an answer to this or not, but I'm just thinking again of like particular individuals I've dealt with in the past, and I know other PTs will. If you've got a client that's maybe been to their doctors a few times and isn't really getting anywhere, maybe they're not being taken seriously. I know of women that have been given a questionnaire to fill out, and then they basically just want to put them on antidepressants, and they're sort of saying, I don't want to go down that route. I don't think it's that. Is there anywhere else that someone can go? Is there somewhere else where they can maybe go and, I don't know, get a bit more information, or maybe get a different opinion, a second opinion? Because it feels like once you've been and they've done this tick box exercise, seems quite difficult to undo that for some people.
Yeah, I get that. It's a story I hear so much from so many ladies is that they've had the same family doctor all their life. They don't feel like, that's where they go. This is the person they know. There's certainly not a sexist issue here, but if it's a male who maybe doesn't have that same empathy, how can you? Yes, that is a problem. They've taken the symptoms in. Generally, the symptoms women will go with are the mood symptoms. They don't normally go in saying, I've got hot flushes, I need to deal with it, because women, we're pretty resilient. We can deal with that. It's the mood symptoms and the way it's affecting the family. It's the way it's affecting the kids, the husband, and it's pushing marriages apart. Many women are leaving high-powered jobs because they just can't cope. So it's the symptoms up here that really count, and that's why the antidepressants are coming in. So the ladies are going to the doctor, they're expressing that as the major symptom, and the doctor's saying antidepressants, because to be fair to doctors, they understand a lot more about antidepressants than they do about HRT. That's
Yeah.
just their training. So naturally, that's the route they go down. And I think it's great that some ladies are resisting that, but most won't. Most will say yes. But the facts are from the research that antidepressants do not affect the mood symptoms associated with menopause. If you're clinically depressed, yes. If it's just mood symptoms from HRT, they generally don't work. So what a shame to be putting something in your body that's not actually going to do anything, and then you have to wean off. So in answer to your question, if you're not getting anywhere with your own doctor, first port of call will be to see if there's another more sympathetic doctor in your surgery. First thing I'd do if I was going to see the doctor about anything woman's hormone related is say, have you got a specialist in this area in this clinic? That would be the first question, and I want to see them even if I have to wait. If that doesn't bring any success, with my own clients, what I tend to have as a sort of backup plan is I have a very nicely, politely worded letter to the doctor just saying who I am, what I do, and this is, this is the research, this is what it says, and just sort of inviting them to, because there is a training for doctors on this subject that a lot of them haven't done, inviting them to maybe to look into that. So it's very respectful, that's the way I would go with my own clients. For your guys, I get now ladies can go private, but as you know, with this subject now becoming more mainstream, the waiting lists are long, it's not cheap. So for first course, I would just persevere if it comes to it. Maybe there's another surgery you can register with, if that's possible.
Yeah.
I've had that before with clients where they just said, I'm going to go to another surgery, so I'm not getting anywhere with this one. I know that isn't a perfect answer, but I think it's just try everywhere or keep doing your research and go to the doctor with it in hand. Because I think a lot of the time you can go to the doctor and this white coat syndrome, you freeze, don't you? You know what you want to say, but you've got a doctor there and you go, I just don't feel great. And it's like, give me more. So if you're armed with that information on a piece of paper or a diary on your phone, I don't think there's many doctors that wouldn't sort of address it, but you'd have to go armed. You've got to do your own research. You can't expect the doctors to know it all.
No. And like you say, if you put yourself in that position of being armed with some information yourself, you can then ask the right questions, can't you? You can sort of assess whether or not their answers are in line with what you've read. And
exactly,
it's a
you
lot
end
less
up educating the doctor, which is a bit embarrassing.
yeah, it's a lot less likely that you're just going to get fobbed off. And I hate to use that phrase, but that's the reality, isn't it? If someone's got 8 minutes to see you, it's about getting you in and out the door as quickly as possible. And that's just the nature of the beast. That's the system we're in. But
that's the system. And sometimes I have suggested to clients about saying, if you've got a lot to talk about, see if you can get a double appointment. You've got a lot to talk about. Or if you can't do that and you've got the 8 minutes, go in and say, right, I'd like to look into the possibility of HRT, and that'll be your first opening gambit. Then it leaves the other 7 minutes to actually talk about it, rather than just going, if you already know what you want, go in with that, and then it gives you a chance to talk about, she can give you her barriers, you can give yours. That's probably a better way to approach it.
Yeah, good. Probably one of the final areas I wanted to go into in terms of, because again, I'm conscious of like PTs being able to feel more comfortable around this area and sort of discuss it more openly, is if you've got a client that is menopausal, perimenopausal, postmenopausal, wherever they're at in that journey, what should your expectations be as a coach in terms of what type of results we can get that help that person get? How do we maybe need to adjust their expectations? Because again, a lot of women that come and see you in their 40s and 50s want to get results that they used to get in their 20s and stuff, like, oh, well, when I was 25, I lost 3 stone and I want to do that again. And straight away, you're a bit like, well, yeah, it's not going to be as easy as that potentially. So maybe just a little piece on like how to manage expectations, what expectations maybe we need to give the client, what expectations you should have as a coach. I know that's very difficult because there's going to be loads, but how you maybe think about that?
Yeah, I think it is difficult because yeah, like you've all sat with those people. You're right. What would you like to achieve? And they go, well, I used to be 10 stone. I still thought I was fat then, but I feel great now. You know, I feel great if I was back there. And you think, let's be realistic. I think really for me now, I would swing the needle more towards health. I would say, right, look, we're trying to get you healthy, and obviously weight comes into that. We know being obese isn't healthy. We know now that the research is saying that obesity has actually trumped smoking in terms of its risk on cancer. That's huge. That's huge. So we know we've got to work on the obesity side. If you're with an obese client, that's got to be a focus, hasn't it? Getting the weight off, getting them out walking, getting them moving. But yeah, being realistic with, because I think it's like I said before, if you can get someone feeling good, getting outside for a walk, training, stretching, doing a bit of weight training, it sort of all comes into place, doesn't it? But I think if you take the focus away from the scales a little bit more and put more focus onto feeling good up here, whatever that takes, hopefully you would hope the rest comes into place. Now, as I said, you've got to have some focus on the scale weight, because I know that for us is a great guide, isn't it? Or circumference measurements, whatever you choose to as your metric. But yes, I think it's saying to ladies, it's explaining, the metabolic rate thing. Your muscle mass is dropping. We're going to do our best to slow that down with lifting, weight training, resistance training. Bone density obviously is dropping, so we've got to expect that you cannot. I don't know if can's the right word, but maybe you won't get to the weight you were at age 20.
Yeah.
But what we want to do is just get you a fully functioning version of you now that's sitting at a healthy weight, whatever that person's healthy weight would be. And I think as long as we're looking at those things and looking at the mindset, I think a lot of the times that things do slot into place. You're dealing with so many emotional things there with food, as we know, that come way past the whole menopause thing. People have got so many issues, haven't they, with the way they look at food as reward, and it's just trying to find for people. For me, I try to ask people what brings you joy in life, what makes you feel good, and let's do more of that, because the more you can feel good, the less you're going to be looking for a reward in the biggest piece of cake ever or the whole cake. We're just looking for rewards in other places and mentally feeling stimulated all the time and feeling good about yourself. And the weight training as well is key. We just got to keep pushing that home, how important that is for these ladies. Because many
Yep.
people still don't. I still have clients where I have to say, you must incorporate this into your life. And say, oh, I'm too busy, I've got this going on. Yeah, it's hard, but you've just got to keep reminding them this is all about your health later in life, and being a functional version of you. Functioning, that's what we want, good function.
Yeah, yeah. I was actually having a conversation yesterday with a client, and I was sort of saying I do think there should be a hell of a lot more around public health messaging around don't wait until you're in your 50s and 60s to try and undo the problem. Like, try and get ahead of the problem. I know that sounds really obvious,
But it isn't obvious, because
but
you think about going back to the osteoporosis thing. If you think about your bone density hitting its densest in your late 30s, if you can make sure that density is higher at that point, you're starting from a higher starting point. So
yeah,
then when you get to your 50s, what would be low for you is higher than it would be for another 50-year-old. So yes, you're right. Start earlier, give yourself less work later on, or make it a lifestyle habit. That's a better way to look at it.
yeah. And that'd be the same for muscle mass, wouldn't it? That'd be saying for
Absolutely.
all those markers, if they were that strength, if it's
Yeah.
that bit higher to start off with, and we're going to accept some level of decline,
Yes, let's
then
start from a higher starting point,
yeah,
definitely. And also, like I said, and make it along the way that this is what I do. This is part of my life. Not just like, oh, I'll get to that. I'll deal with that when it comes, which is, hate to say it, a lot of the way we think in this world. The problem is with the NHS, NHS will come save us. That's a lot of, it's awful to think that's the way people think, but they do, unfortunately. In fact, before we finish, I wanted to actually touch on supplements as well, because you did
yes,
mention that,
I
and
did
that's
in the
something I
notes. Yeah,
really need to speak about. Do you want to go? I
yes,
haven't really got much to say, but it's important.
yeah,
Um, Obviously, with menopause becoming more mainstream, marketers love it. So they will jump on the bandwagon and they will say, get this face cream, this will make your menopausal skin better, get this supplement, you will stave off menopause symptoms. It's a marketer's dream, isn't it? Let's be honest, because we're marketing to people from 40 to the end of life. We're marketing to a massive group of women. And if you think about this, we as women make up 51% of the population, 51. And 100% of us are going to go through this. That's a lot of people. That's a lot of people. So obviously it's a marketer's dream. Be aware there is no supplement. I'll say it again. There is no supplement that can create hormones in your body. There is no supplement you can take that will increase your estrogen. There are supplements you can take that might stop a symptoms. Like a couple of the ones that we talked about were like black cohosh, and we've got ashwagandha. A couple of the supplements that we talked about on my course. There's a few others that help with maybe the night sweats, or help with just feeling a bit better in terms of your mood, help with relaxation. So they're two that sort of stand out as ones that might help or can help with symptoms. They are not and never will going to be able to increase your estrogen or your progesterone or your testosterone. You can't do that without taking HRT. All you can do with supplements, there's a placebo effect, brilliant. Don't argue it. If you're getting a placebo effect from a supplement, well, great, that's good. You take it.
Yeah.
But often it will be a placebo effect, or it might just make you feel a little bit better. You know, some of these supplements might make you feel a bit more positive, but it's not going to change the end result, is really what I want to say on the supplement side. I think that's key because there's so many women being sold to, you know, and I suppose all supplement companies play on our insecurities. Same for men, testosterone boosters, all of it. They're all playing on our insecurities. So
yeah. I suppose where they're probably going to come in as well is they'll probably, if they are going to have some impact at all, it might be that they're impacting a symptom of menopause, but again, they're not treating that underlying thing that's there, that's the real problem, are they? So
not
like taking a painkiller.
Yeah, exactly. Like I wrote down here, the black cohosh, it might reduce hot flashes, it might reduce blood pressure a little bit, and you know, it might have a mild effect on mild depression. Mild. These are all may. So yeah, it could do. And I say, even if it's placebo, it's great, but it's not going to change the reason why you're having these symptoms, and that's the low hormones.
Yep, brilliant. Mel, I feel like we've gone a long way in a short space of time. So
I could go on forever, Matt. I could go on forever.
have we missed anything? I know you touched on the supplements there, but is there anything else that you feel that would have been important to get in today's conversation or anything?
I mean, you know what? I'll probably think of something afterwards, but it doesn't matter. But yeah, the main thing is just for your coaches, just realise that a lot of these women, if they're coming and going, oh, I just don't feel like it today, or they're a bit embarrassed about it, just make it easier for them to talk to you about it. Women are embarrassed they're going through this. You know, I will have been there. We're all been there. We don't really want to talk, especially a lot of women who have a male coach. They might be thinking, well, you don't bloody understand. Just try and, with your client, try and open the conversation. You know, nobody wants to talk about women's private parts, but you can open the conversation about hormones and say you understand a bit about it if you ever want to talk about it. You know, I think it's just opening the conversation, because it is, for a lot of women, it's like it's almost hidden embarrassment that they're going through. A phase of life that my parents or my grandparents told me, you've just got to get through that and come out the other end. Well, you're not coming out the other end. Hormones are not going to pop back up at the end of this tunnel. It's not coming to an end until you come to an end. That's sorry to be depressing, but it isn't. So I think just get the conversation open. Let's be just more open about talking about it, because, you know, I didn't used to be, and I think you've got to be, else, you know, do we just go through misery on our own, sat in a dark room going, oh, life's over? No, it isn't.
Yeah. It's just about having that adult conversation, isn't it? And then I think, just adding to what you said, just supporting the client as well, like having worked with people that have gone through this and just being there to support, just as a sounding board.
Yeah.
You know,
it's amazing how with things like pregnancy, women through pre and postnatal PT is a big thing, isn't it? We can talk about that. Oh, we're all genned up on that. This is exactly the same effects if we're dealing with hormones and body changes, but it's very hush-hush, isn't it? So yeah, it needs to be the same. It needs to be the same as pregnancy, just another phase of a woman's life.
Yeah. Now, for anyone that wants to come and see some of your fantastic content, Mel, and find out more about what you do and sort of learn a bit more about this, give us all the spiel in terms of handles and things and where we can find you.
Right, well, mainly at the moment, I'm mainly loading all my content to my Facebook page, which is just me, Melanie Larkin. I've got my Instagram page again, I load to there, which is Mel_sustain HLC, which I can always give you to put in the show notes if you like. Also, you know, because the algorithms and all that, we're seem to be getting pushed into doing YouTube Shorts a lot. So I'm trying to load a lot of stuff to YouTube Shorts. So I've got a YouTube channel as well, which I really set up during lockdown because obviously we had a lot more time on our hands then. So I was doing a lot of long form video. Now I'm doing a lot of the shorter stuff because that's what people seem to want. And so that's going on YouTube as well. So they're the main three. I did a bit of TikTok and LinkedIn, but I think you can't do everything. You try, you can't do everything. So they're the main three: YouTube, Facebook, and Instagram, definitely. But yeah, I certainly send you details if you like.
Yeah, and we'll make sure that Mel's tagged in everything. You know, when this goes live and everything, it'll be easy to find her. Don't worry about
Yeah,
that.
any questions, come to me. I'm so desperate to spread the word on this. There's so much miseducation, as it were.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for today, Mel. I've learned a lot. I'm sure the audience will have learned a lot. I think this will be one of the episodes that gets fantastic response. So let's keep spreading that message. You're doing a great job. Can't think of anyone else that'd be as good an advocate as you. So get
Oh,
out
bless
there,
you.
keep
That's
going.
lovely. Do try.
And hopefully we'll speak to each other a little sooner than our latest break
I know. What's
in
been gone
communication.
must be 2015 or something like that.
Yeah. We'll do a better job of staying in contact.
We will. Thank you so much, Matt. Thanks for inviting me on. It's been great.
Hello and welcome back to the Profit Podcast. I am Matt Robinson, one of your hosts, and today I am joined by a special guest. This is Mel Larkin, and me and Mel go way back. We worked together in Profit starting in 2015, I believe, and I mentored Mel for a while. She went off to do other things and is now a menopause support coach. So we've brought her on today to talk all things menopause, how it relates to your clients, how it relates to you as a coach, things we need to be aware of, common misconceptions, myths about treatments and stuff like that. Do supplements have a place? What to do with nutrition? We cover a lot of ground in a very, very short space of time. So I have got no doubt that today's episode will be a huge one for a lot of you. It'll fill a lot of gaps that you didn't even know you had. Certainly did that for me. So without further ado, hope you enjoy this episode, and I hope you get a lot from our conversation with Mel. Enjoy.